You don't have a problem with discipline. You have a problem with psychological mechanisms that are causing that result. A lack of discipline is a result. The psychological mechanisms are the causes that produce that result. So we're going to be going deep into them in this 10-minute video. And make sure you walk away knowing exactly what needs to change in order for you to progress, and also give you deeper understanding of what might be causing this avoidance, this lack of discipline that we speak about. So the first one is avoidance. You're not having, this like laziness problem. You're avoiding the action because you're unsure of the outcome and you fear the reward won't come. So then the guilt and the shame make it heavier next time, and the root is uncertainty you're flinching from. It's this inability to deal with uncertainty and fear and all of this stuff. And this is extremely common in entrepreneurship, where the reward is not actually guaranteed. If you work for a month in your job, you're guaranteed a salary. Whereas if you're doing something, maybe it's the gym or something, and you're not sure if you're doing it right, this uncertainty, this lack of optimization, and this kind of integrates with optimization, this obsession over optimizing things. This can cause avoidance because the amount of variables that you have to control and make sure that are the number one perfect things is going to stress you out more than you could ever possibly believe, and then lead to avoidance because you've passed that threshold of comfort that you can tolerate. There's a lot of things to understand here that what generates certainty, what generates this ability to be disciplined and actually lock everything in. And this is mainly the point that you don't really trust that these things are going to happen, or you don't know if that is the most optimal thing to do. And by the way, optimism is just a bad perfectionist habit in better wrapping. It's just perfectionism, which we know leads to a lot of avoidance, a lot of stress, and a lack of enjoyment in the work you are doing, because you do not accept yourself for doing things imperfectly, because you're writing a narrative and a story about you based on that. The second one is self-punishment. Let's look at identity alignment. If you are someone who hates themselves, the actions, you're doing things to punish yourselves, and this really does integrate with the all in or not, all in or nothing mindset. When you have this mindset, it's dangerous because it's extremely dopaminergic. And what I mean by this is that you get so much gratification imagining yourself doing everything, going all in, doing everything perfectly and executing and getting everything that you want without actually doing it. So the imagination itself, the fantasy itself, is also what's driving it. Because society, the thing I want you to understand about shame is, because there's a huge misconception about shame. Shame is used by society to drive change. Someone hits someone, oh, shame on you, shame on you. If they have a moral center in their brain and they can actually take that on board, they will change their behavior to align with what society wants them to do, which is behavioral correction. That's what shame is used for. And shame with yourself can be okay. Like there are moments where maybe you should feel some shame, but when it comes to, you berating yourself and shaming yourself because you didn't execute on the habit, that's actually not helping you become any better. It's just forcing you to get more stressed and then look for more relief. And I'll teach you about the self-disparagement cycle I made. So self-disparagement cycle is when you relapse, whatever habit that might be. Then you give yourself shame. You're like, oh, you should be ashamed. You're lazy, you're undisciplined, you didn't execute, you didn't follow through, and you feel that in your body. And then what happens is that negative self-talk generates that shame. By the way, that's another causal in this chain. And then because of that, you receive stress, because shame on the nervous system is stress. It's you being stressed out with yourself, and then that turns into this discomfort where you then look for relief and then you relapse again. So the way we understand this mechanism is, okay, we need to pattern interrupt. Where can we integrate compassion? Where the negative self-talk happens, because that narrative that you write because you failed is exactly where you then feel the shame. And what we need to do is, when that narrative begins to start, pause, stop, question it, challenge it. Is this really helping me? Is this really true? Are these statements I'm making myself valid? And then you change them. You then change and invert them into positivity. It's all right. You wouldn't tell that to your little brother or sister. You wouldn't tell that to someone else or your mate. Make sure you speak to yourself like you would speak to them, because then you treat yourself with respect and compassion. And the reason why this is important is because, one, it pattern interrupts, so it destroys that loop where you feel the shame, get stressed, and then look for relief. And the other part is that when you align yourself with an identity of someone who values themselves, you're more likely to be more consistent for yourself because it aligns. That's important. And the third is too much discomfort. So this really kind of links in with the all or nothing mindset. When you try and go all or nothing, you are, let's say your discomfort threshold is here, so bang average, let's say. Then when you try and execute on something that's genuinely difficult, you are going, oh, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to go up here because then I'll adapt and I'll get used to it, and then I'll be flying, and then everything will be perfect and great. The problem is that that's not, you can't pass that threshold by that level. The exact way that we hijack neuroplastic, well, we capitalize off of neuroplasticity to the highest degree is through acute discomfort, acute agitation. This is my example of what I did in zone to get to zone 2 cardio. So when I really wanted to start doing cardio, I know it's good for HRV, which regulates your nervous system, and there's tons of other benefits of aerobic exercise. The problem was that I've been doing this before in the past, and I would do zone 2, and then I wouldn't do it again because it was too difficult. That was the reality. It was too uncomfortable for me. But what I decided to do instead is, okay, well, let's decrease the threshold. What makes me acutely uncomfortable? That's getting on there on the bike, doing 50-ish RPM for 10 minutes, and doing that 2-3 times a week on top of MMA and stuff like that. But then I was able to turn up and do it consistently. Why? Because it was easy enough for me to get it and do it every time. It was attractive enough, and it wasn't like this crazy experience where I had to because you're going to turn up to the gym one day after you finish your workout and then have to do it and then go, oh, I'm not really feeling it today, I'm busy, there's stuff going on, I'm tired. That's you rationalizing, reasoning away from it. But the thing is that because it's 10 minutes and it's not taking too much out of me, I can be consistent with it. And then what happens? You increase I get used to that, because what happens is your discomfort threshold for that increases because the habit becomes more wired in, and then it's easier to automate and increase. But by the end of this year, if I'm consistent with that still, because I did that, it goes to show that that's more effective. Because when I was doing it all in and trying to do the most athletic workout and all of that stuff, I wasn't able to do it consistently because I